So welcome back to my channel. This is Gamer Dom, and it's funny what you can find on the server. So I was having a quick trawl around the garage and server and all the different tanks and whatnot, and discovered that there's a whole load of sort of probably upcoming premium tanks hiding in plain sight. So you can get to these just by using the comparison tool. So we've got the British Tier 8 heavy tank, the Carnarvon X, Carnarvon 10, also called the Carnarvon Action 10. You've got the French Tier 8 light tank, the ELC 1190. You've got this thing, which is a T-71 CMCDP, a Tier 7 American light tank. The Alpine Tiger, VK16801P, the Jagdpanzer thingy with the 105mm, and of course the losers Sherman, which is available on the North American server and elsewhere, but not yet in the EU. So that's interesting, but let's have a look and see what these things look like up close and personal. So this is the Carnarvon Action 10, Action X. This is, it's been talked about on a number of forums and a number of blogs. This is the Tier 8 British premium heavy tank. It's a sort of mixture of a Carnarvon with a Super Conqueror turret. You can see those spaced armour plates like the Tier 10 Super Conqueror has. But how does it compare with the regular Carnarvon at Tier 8? Well, it's pretty much identical, to be absolutely honest. There's a few differences along the line. Slightly less damage, 230 versus 280. Penetration is slightly better, 226 versus 220. But rate of fire is better, 10.61 versus 9.63. And largely that's because it has a smaller caliber main armament. So it fires more rapidly with better penetration, but does less damage. But its damage per minute is pretty much, well, it's actually slightly worse. So the Carnarvon is 2,696, which is the best damage per minute of any Tier 8 tank in the game, and the Carnarvon Action X comes in at 2,440. Now bear in mind those are values with only 100% crew and no equipment, so you will be able to boost that considerably. Now my reading of this is that 2,400 is actually the second best DPM of any tank in the game, any heavy tank, Tier 8 heavy tank in the game. So you got the best with the Carnarvon and second best with the premium Carnarvon. Turret speed is considerably quicker on the Action 10, so 37.55 versus 31.29. Gun depression is the same. You get 2 extra degrees of gun elevation, which is interesting. Aim time is identical, 2.21. Dispersion is better on the premium, 0.31 versus 0.33. Hit points wise, it gets 100 less than the non-premium, 1,500 versus 1,600. Armour wise, well, it's a mixed bag really. The Carnarvon, regular Carnarvon, has an extra 26mm of side armour, so 130, 76, 38. The premium has 130, same, but only 50 at the side and 38 at the rear. So that means, I mean, you can't really do much side scraping in a Carnarvon anyway, but you definitely can't in this Action 10. Turret armour is however better, so you have 254 of frontal armour, which is the same as the non-premium edition, but the side of the turret is a whopping 152 and 95 at the rear, as opposed to 88 and 88 for the Carnarvon. Mobility wise, well, there's not much in it there either. They both well, they're both around 61, 65 tons, so slightly heavier with the Carnarvon Action 10. Engine power, however, is bigger, so therefore it has a better power ratio, 14.62 versus 13.12. Doesn't make a huge amount of difference at top speed. It's 2 miles an hour, 2 kph difference in speed, 36.3 versus 34.3. Traverse speed is better though on the premium, 29.2 versus 25.03. Concealment, well, forget that because they're heavy tanks. View range, interestingly, on the regular Carnarvon is 400 meters, whereas 380 on the premium. So you've got a tank that is very, very similar to its regular brethren. Very, very similar indeed. It has, as I suspected, the 20mm gun as opposed to the 20 pounder gun as opposed to the 32 pounder gun, which is on the regular Carnarvon. But it's not a bad little gun. Better better penetration for slightly less alpha. So, but the DPM is still very, very good indeed. So it's an interesting departure. We've moaned incessantly about sort of super OP premiums. Now they seem to be now heading down the route of premiums that are pretty much identical to the regular tank on the server. And I'm not sure that I like that idea either. So I think the for me, premiums should be slightly different. Sort of add something that the regular tanks don't add. What's the point? There's enough premium tanks in the game already. If you just basically get a premiumized version of a regular tech tree tank, it seems a bit pointless to me. But hey, there is no British tier 8 heavy tank in a premium heavy tank in the game. The only other one is the tier 7, which you don't see very often, the FV whatever it is. So yeah, interesting. Let's hop over to Tanks GG and have a look at its armour profile. So here we are in Tanks GG, and here's the armour profile of the Carnarvon Action 10. Lots of spaced armour, isn't it? Look at this. I mean, the turret is ridiculous. 250, 300 as you go up through it. Wow, that's pretty impressive. This bit of top here is not so good. Only 240 just above the gun. But again, if you're taking advantage of that great gun depression, it's an auto ricochet. Ping. Lower hull 180 is nothing special. Lower plate is actually only 76mm, so only 120. So even tier 6s will go through that quite happily. Side armor 73%. Got a very solid bit here, that's weird. But look at all the spaced armor here. Wow, big tracks will eat everything, so you do not want to shoot this in the tracks. And then of course this spaced armor here, 14mm spaced armor backed up by 152 behind it. That's pretty monumental. So turret is a weak spot. Oh, the commander's hatchery 127 is a weak spot, and the back end, yeah, well, everybody's back end is vulnerable, aren't they? Anyway, that's on Tanks GG. Let's head back to the garage. So next up we've got the little mutant. This is the ELC 1190. This is the tier 8 French premium light tank. Look at this weird looking thing. It's only a 3-man crew, but look at the size of it. You wonder how they even get 3 men in this. It's got a commander, gunner, driver. Okay, so obviously tough to compare the ELC because it doesn't have an equivalent in the tech trees. So, but we'll look at it compared to the Black Dog, the M4190 Girlfriend, which is the tier 8 German premium light tank, which it doesn't come up that often for sale. You've got the brand new T92 American tier 8 premium light tank, and just for lols, let's look at the tier 5 ELC by comparison. So you can see immediately the 1190 has having a 90mm gun has not bad damage, 220 average damage, which is fairly favourable compared to the Girlfriend at 240, and better than the T90. Slightly worse than the tier 5 90mm. So interesting, both got 90mm guns. Tier 5 does more damage because of reasons. However, where it makes up for its penetration, certainly compared to its tier 5 brethren, 175 penetration, which is the same as the American light tank, but lower than the Girlfriend, 182. Rate of fire is also slower, 5.24 as opposed to 9.48 with the Black Dog and 13.91 with the American light tank, which means it suffers considerably on damage per minute, but it has got an autoloader, and autoloaders always do suffer. So 1152 damage per minute as opposed to 2276 with the Black Dog. Even the T95 has 2000 DPM, so pretty darn good. However, it does, I say, it does have an autoloader, so that makes a big difference. Turret speed is actually pretty slow compared to these two, 47.98 as opposed to 52.15 for both of the other tier 8s. But you do get very good gun depression, -9, not as good as the T95, but slightly better than the Black Dog, so -9 is very nice. So reload time on the magazine is 29.37 seconds. It reloads a shell every 2.5 seconds and carries 3 shells in the magazine. So it's not fantastic. 3 shells doing 220 damage is not great. It means you can only do potential damage of 660, which, considering that you're a tier 8 light tank and you're going to go up against tier 9s and tier 10s, 600 is hardly going to scare them, is it? So yeah, not so good. Aim time is also atrocious, 2.78 aim time. You've got to be pretty much point blank to have any chance of hitting anything, and your dispersion of 0.36 is also pretty awful, although pretty much in line with all the other lights in this category. But yeah, not so good. Hit points, it's also got the lowest of the tier 8s. We're looking at 900 as opposed to 1100 for the Black Dog and 1000 for the T95. Of course, considerably more than the tier 5 ELC. But the armour is actually worse than the tier 5. Doesn't have any 15, 10, 10, 15, 10, 10. So that's just frighteningly bad. Even, you know, these guys haven't got any armour, but even they have more. Only weighs 6.7 tons, 160 horsepower engine, gives it a power ratio of 23.88, which is actually pretty good. It's better than the Black Dog, not as good as the outstanding T95, which has a phenomenally fast getaway, but it does have a 600 horsepower engine, so yeah, you would expect. But the 1190 does come out pretty well with a top speed of 70 and 20 in reverse, which is better than the T92, which is one of its weaknesses. I think the T92 top speed being only 60, marginally slower than the Girlfriend at 72.4. Traverse speed is also pretty bad, actually, 46.94. Is for a light tank is not great. The Girlfriend is 56.3 and the T95 is an outstanding 57.37. So 46.9, yeah, not so good. But the concealment values are outstanding, and this is where this tank comes into its own. Look at this, 22.12% concealment when stationary. Now the T95 has outstanding, but that is only, inverted commas, 18.24, and it's actually slightly better than the very, very sneaky ELC, which has 21.89 concealment. So even though it's got an extra crewman, it's even sneakier than the tier 5 light tank, which is pretty darn good. However, that's where the good news ends, because its view range is only 380, the other two 400. The tier 5 is only 360, so view range is awful. So looks like gun handling is terrible, looks like speed is okay, concealment is outstanding. So that is your... I won't bother going to Tanks GG because yeah, it doesn't have any armour, but there you go. That's the upcoming tier 8 French premium light tank. So next up we have the German tier 8 tank destroyer, the Kronenjagdpanzer 105. So this is currently in the game with a 90mm gun, but they're playtesting, or have been testing, upgunning it, because frankly the 90mm is pretty awful, and it's not a very popular tank. So they're looking like they've been trying out a few options with it to try and make it a bit more competitive, and one of the ideas is to put the 105mm, and clearly because it's actually in the game files, it must be fairly close to appearing. Let's have a quick comparison of the two. So let's compare the 105 version versus the 90mm version and see what we get for our money. So damage per minute, damage per shot obviously goes up considerable, 390 as opposed to a lackluster 240 with the current version. Penetration also goes up 268, which is nice, to 238 with the current version, but you do pay for it in terms of rate of fire, 5.22 rounds per minute as opposed to 9.93, which means your DPM drops considerably, 2034 with the 105mm and 2384 with the 90mm. So you're losing about 350 DPM, which is quite a significant amount actually. Reload time is 11.51 as opposed to 6. Gun traverse is identical, 22.95. So is gun depression, -8. Traverse of the actual turret is 15 degrees, so it's exactly the same. Aim time identical, 1.72, 1.73 even. Dispersion a very good 31, which is identical. So really it's just the extra penetration, extra damage you're getting with 105, but in exchange you're suffering in terms of DPM. So yeah, you hit harder, shoot less often. However, you also get less hit points, which is an intriguing thing to do. So they're dropping it by quite a lot, 150. It's a lot of hit points. So 1050 on this new 105mm version as opposed to 1200, and its armor is identical, so non-existent, 30, 30 and 8, so that doesn't change. Weight limit slightly more with the bigger gun, but not by much. Engine power is identical, but also because it's slightly heavier and the engine power is identical, you lose a little bit on power ratio. But this thing is a pretty mobile little TD. They both do 70 kph and 20 in reverse, and have 47.98 tank traverse, which is pretty good for a TD. Concealment wise also very good, 23.6 concealment when stationary, which is again identical. And they both have 360 view range, which is pretty god awful. So yeah, interesting. Of course, another area the 105 version misses out is that the 90mm has a pretty good HE round, does 102 penetration for 320 average damage. The HE shell on this is not so good. It's a more conventional 53 penetration and 480 average average damage. So yeah, it's intriguing this, and I don't know what the answer is. I have this tank in the 90mm version, but there's no precedent for amending the gun on a premium tank, and it'd be interesting to see how Wargaming play this if they do indeed bring this tank into the game, because there could be people out there using the 90mm and being very happy with it. So do you force them to change, or do you bring this in as a new premium, which will then piss off everybody with the 90 who don't like it? Do you just do you give compensation for those who have the 90mm and let them, give them the option to buy the 105 instead? I really don't know. It's interesting. It'll be very interesting to see if it does appear, but the fact it's in the game files and it's freely viewable means it can't be far off potentially coming into the game. So presumably they've worked out exactly what they want to do with this thing, but I will be very intrigued. So next up is a little oddity. This is the T71 CMCDP. This is a preferential tier 7 American light tank, basically from the same family as the T71s. In fact, they look almost identical in terms of what they are. Now, to my knowledge, this tank was originally talked about being introduced into the game about 2 to 3 years ago, and never actually appeared. It was talked about again last year, I believe, and then when they split the line and instigated the T-71 with a single shotgun, it sort of disappeared again. But it is in the game files, and it's there for you to spot if you want to go and have a look for it. Just filter through the comparison tool, American Tier 7 light tanks, and you will find it there to play with, to have a look at. You can't play with it, sorry, just to have a look at in the garage and preview in the same way as I'm doing. So let's have a look at it compared to the others. So here we are in the comparison tool. This is the premium version up against the autoloader and the non-autoloader that are on the tech tree right now, and you can see they're pretty similar. So single shot gun on the premium gives damage 150, whereas the which is the same as the autoloader, but actually is more than the single shot gun, which is 115. Penetration 175 is better than the other two by some distance. 175 is what a tier 8 light tank has nowadays, so that's a pretty good penetration. Rate of fire 14.55 is extremely good. So this thing has the best penetration. The premium, this is back to the old days of premiums, it's better better than the standard gun. 2183 base XP with 100% crew. The autoloader is 1800, and the single shot is a terrible 1600. Wow, terrible. Turret traverse is as good as the single shots, 47.98. Gun depression is as good as the single shot, but much better than the autoloader at -7. Aim time 1.83 is better than the autoloader and the same as the single shot gun. And accuracy 0.36 is better than the autoloader again, same as the single shot. So you can see there's a theme here. Hull wise, they're identical. Weight wise, actually the premium version is lighter. It's the same lightness as light as the autoloader, but for some reason the single shot gun is slightly heavier, 17.92 tons, but the premium has a 600 horsepower engine, which gives it a massive speed advantage in terms of acceleration, 35.37. The autoloader has 24.76, and the single shot a terrible 19.53. That's awful for a light tank. But they all have the same top speed, 64. It's just the premium will get there quicker. Traverse speed, again, the premium is better, 67.8. That's extraordinary. Concealment values, it's exactly the same as the non-preferential single shot T-71, 13.17 percentage chance of being spotted when you're stationary. The autoloader is better for some reason, 14.08. View range also is better on the premium, 400 meters as opposed to 390 with the other two. So this, to me, this premium is a bit of a throwback. This is the sort of Defender type level in a light tank, though. That sort of ethos of premium tanks that are actually better than their non-preferential tiers, which seems to have changed lately, but this tank is still in there, still in the game files. I wonder whether we'll ever see it actually instigated, because it's not just hidden in the game files. You can find it really easily without any kind of software. You just filter through the comparison tool and you'll find it there. Interesting, eh? So the next not so well hidden premium there is around in the game at the moment is this thing, the VK16801P. Now, I guarantee you've seen this, even though it's not in the game yet. This is the Naked Malbracker. So it appears there is an opportunity, or will be an opportunity, to get hold of the Malbracker without all that camo on it. because it is exactly the same. Let's have a look at it in the garage, in the comparison tool, sorry. So yeah, exactly as the Nullbacker, exactly, stat for stat, all the way down. There we go, exactly. So it's basically just a Nullbacker without the camo, without the built-on camo, which is intriguing, because actually that's the one area it's weakest. Is the camo on the Nullbacker is all of 3.48, whereas on the VK is 2.34. But of course you can add more on there. You can add your own camo on this thing. What I find fascinating about the Nullbacker is how utterly rubbish it looks. Compare it to the Tech Tree VK100-01P. It just isn't in the same ballpark. Got the same gun, same pen, same rate of fire, same reload time, same turret traverse speed is exactly the same, gun depression exactly the same, aim time exactly the same, dispersion exactly the same, DPM therefore exactly the same, hit points exactly the same. But the VK, the non-premium version, has a better hull, 200, 130, 120, and what's more, the Nullbacker and the VK have a weak spot in their hull. The machine gun port, much like you can pen on the Super Pershing, is penable on these tanks, whereas there is no such thing on the VK100. Similarly with the turret. The turret on the VK has that commander's hatch like the other two do, but it's not as easy to pen as it is on the premium vehicles, so go figure. So yeah, intriguing. So it makes me laugh though, everyone's moaned for ages about premium tanks being too powerful, and then they release a couple of tanks, Nullbacker being one, that are not Nullbacker, shouldn't it? That are not as good as their conventional tank in the Tech Tree, and everyone moans it's not good enough, it's not good enough, but then they moan when it's premium. Go figure. Anyway, there you go. I just thought that was kind of amusing. So next up is the WZ111111 Alpine Tiger. This is the beauty. It's a rather nice looking beastie. A bit of a looker. So this is a tier 8 preferential matchmaking Chinese heavy tank, kind of one of the IS-3 clones, but it is exactly the same as this WZ111111 that's already in the game. Stats are identical. Look at this, absolutely identical, because it is the same tank. The only difference is you get the paint job, which means you have already a 7.87 camo rating as opposed to 6.73, but of course the WZ can have its own camo put on it, which makes it slightly better camo. But you know, it's like polishing a turd, it's still a turd, so the camo is not really up to much, but fascinating again. Now on the Chinese, the Chinese server, you could buy the Alpine Tiger, and I think it had all kinds of extra credit boosts. Now no suggestion, no idea from this whether or not this thing has any kind of credit boosts other than what you get in the premium, but it's a nice looking tank. Not big into these ones with all the, you know, funky pretend camo on this, but this one's actually quite subtle. So there you go. Alpine Tiger is also in there, in the garage, just hidden in plain sight. So finally, not really hidden because you can buy this in the North American server right now, but there is the loser, the M4A3 Sherman, Russian Sherman, driven by Commander Loza, who was a hero of the revolution, well, not the revolution, hero of the Second World War for the Russians, and he drove this Lend-Lease Sherman to some effect, that is for sure, but it is just basically a Sherman with a little bit of armour, not much though. In fact, strike that, it's got no armour at all. 63, 38, 38. But you know, it's just the latest in a long line of Shermans in the game, so here's some of them. And you know, the loser sits right in the middle. It's pretty much identical to the Fury that and the Thunderbolt, except the Thunderbolt has extra armour and this loses a bit of mobility, but otherwise they're identical, all these tanks. To me, don't understand them. I mean, I guess for collectors having the loser is probably a good thing. For players, I think there's far better ways to spend your money, but hey, who am I to talk about that? I've spent far too much money on the game. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed a quick look at these. Well, it wasn't that quick in the end, but a look at all the different premiums that are hidden, but not very well, within the game files. And, you know, as I said, this isn't me being clever and using some software to extract the details from somewhere. These are just there if you go in the comparison tool, and you can have a look at them yourselves and see what you think of them. But interesting, they're all there because the fact they are tends to suggest they're not far off being introduced into the game. In the case of the loser here, it will appear very shortly in the EU server because it's already on the others. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like, and let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about these premiums. Any of them excite you? I'm not sure about the Carnarvon. I was thinking I wanted it, but then I thought it's just the same as the regular Carnarvon. Just generating extra credits. Do I really need it? Probably not, because it's going to be expensive, isn't it? It's a tier 8 heavy tank, and those things are always expensive. 35, 40 pounds? Yeah, not sure. I think I might leave that one well alone. And I did think about the French light tank, the 1190, but I saw a video by Quickie Babe driving it, and he was fairly scathing about how terrible it is. And if a good player like him can't manage to get it to work, then not sure someone like me will be good at it. So I don't really know as much anything there that really appeals to me. I will be very interested to see what they do with my Cronen Jagdpanzer thingy, if they give me the 105, because that does look good. It finally makes that gun a little bit more meaningful. 90mm is just too stubby, and you don't want something stubby in your life. Anyway, enough of my waffle. Thanks for watching. As I said, if you liked it, give it a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike. But whatever you think, just let me know down below. In the meantime, enjoy your games, have fun, try not to take it too seriously, and I will see you again soon. This is GamerDom, signing out.